I'm starting off here just by spreading out the fabric. It takes me a minute, but we're going to be doing the Simplicity Pajama Pants pattern. It's a unisex youth and teen and adult pattern. Gotta move some stuff out of the way, but just straightening out the fabric. You want it as flat as possible. Now I'm breaking out the pattern. I already cut mine out, but just follow the guide along the edge. Personally, I recommend, unless you're making it for a child, just to make the extra large for comfiness. Now I'm pinning the pattern down, and I did mess up a little bit on pinning the pattern down, I think, on this one. But you want to get the pattern as flat as possible. Probably don't sit on your fabric if you can. But yeah, I'm only going to show me pinning half the side because I, want to stay decent. Now I'm cutting out the fabric. It's important to try to cut around the edge of the fabric so that you don't cut into the pattern. Plus it gives you like a little bit of extra space in case you make a mistake with your seam allowance. And probably don't kneel on your pattern. Probably not for the best, but gotta do what you gotta do. Get those straight lines. Now I'm pinning down the next leg. It is important to make sure that you flip the pattern over so all the writing is backwards. This is so that you make the second leg. You could also fold the fabric in half and pin one side face up. And cut through both at the same time. Personally, I think that it comes out better if you just do it separately, but I understand that sometimes you are in a rush. But yeah, it's also important to pin the head of the pin towards the outside during this part so that you can cut around the edges evenly. I use longer pins because I feel like they're easier to find and they're easier to work with. Personally, I can't stand the tiny pins. Now I'm just cutting out this side. If you notice, I actually went onto the edge of the border on the fabric, but thankfully that was covered up by the seams. So I'm just going to keep cutting out the fabric. Shout out to Walmart for my awesome Galaxy leggings. I love them so much. This time I was able to push the fabric out of the way because there wasn't that much left, which made it a little bit easier. I even scoot away with it, I think, here. Alright, now I'm going to show you unpinning the pants. Pretty standard stuff here. You're just going to take the pins out and put them in your pin cushion. Not really sure why I recorded it, but the fact that I recorded it means I'm going to include it. But, yeah, just make sure that you have a pin cushion to stick your pins into. It's a lot easier than sticking them back into the container, if I were to make a recommendation, I guess. Now this section has purpose. Oh no! Alright, now I'm pinning up the pants. So I started from the bottom of the pant leg and matched up the corners and then just pinned all the way up the edge with my pin head on the inside of the fabric, the pointy end pointing out towards the edge of the fabric, so that my sewing machine can go over them. I know a lot of people say don't sew over your pins, but my grandmother has been sewing for a very long time and she sews over her pins, so I'm going to go with what my grandma says and just deal with the broken pins, or broken needles, as I will. Now you just sew up the inner leg with a zigzag stitch. I just used the edge of my foot as a guide to tell me how wide my seam allowance was. But obviously if you know what your seam allowance is supposed to be on the pattern, then use that seam allowance. But you can get away with using the edge of your foot. Alright, now I'm going to do the same as the other leg. Just sewing up the inner seam. I think I might have pinned it wrong on this one, so that's why I'm moving pins around. My bobbin ended up being empty, so I had to refill that. But then I was able to pick up right from where I left off. Just did a quick back stitch, or reverse, so that I could continue my stitch all the way down. Here I am, famously unpinning again. Not really sure why it was necessary to show you guys me unpinning it, but here's the footage of me unpinning it. So I recorded me unpinning, but didn't record me doing the hardest part, which is pinning the seams together. Now I'm going to look at the pattern real quick, or the instructions for the pattern. You are going to flip one of the legs inside out, and then you are going to place the right side out leg inside of the inside out leg, and then you're going to pin up the seams, match up the seams in the inner leg, and then pin up the seams from the middle. Then you're going to go on your machine and just sew that edge all the way around. Don't worry about it. It works. Don't worry. Now just fold over about 1 inch of fabric on the bottom of the pants and sew along the edge. Again, I use the left side of my foot as a guide. And just sew all the way around the cuff. I recommend taking the bottom support off your machine if you can. Your hand support, so that your cuff just slips right over your machine. And repeat the same on the other side, making sure to pay close attention to how wide you made the other leg so that the hems are even. And then I place the pants to the left of my machine so that I can easily maneuver them while I sew. I just find that flipping them around is the easiest way to get that leg sewn together. I forgot to record me doing the waistband, but I essentially sewed the waistband all the way around except for one section, and then I fed elastic through with a safety pin on the end, sewed the elastic together, and then I had pants.